This is Matt Dietz. This is Agency Launch. This is the podcast where I talk about what it's like running an insurance agency. I talk about marketing and sales and staffing and retention. And if you can master those four pillars, you will be successful. That's a lot of work, though. If you want some help with that, send me a text, 208-213-8809, and just send me the word free, and I'll send you a huge resource with a ton of free assets in there. There are PDFs, YouTube channels, podcasts, all kinds of stuff. There's downloadable PDFs, a lot of stuff in there that'll take you a minute to get through. But 208-213-8809, send me the word free. Okay. So today I want to talk about a couple conversations I had with some of the agents that I'm coaching. I'm going to talk about some of the emotional toil that can come with this job. I'm going to talk about a little bit about some of the decisions that we have to make kind of in real time on the fly, some hard conversations we might have to have with some clients, and what's the best way to get through these conversations. So I was having a call with one of my agents this week, and he's like, Dietz, we had a tough week last week. He's like, something happened I had two things happen during the day, and I decided that I needed to shut it down for the day because I was pretty worked up. And so I closed my office and I went home. And I was like, hey, good for you for recognizing that. It's one of the perks of running your own business. You can be like, I'm out. I'm done with this today. You want to pull the ripcord. You want to use that sparingly, right? But this is smart. This gentleman, he understands himself. He knows himself very well. And he knows that if he were to keep going or to keep down a certain path, it wouldn't end well. It reminded me of a movie that you probably haven't seen called Happy Texas. It's an awesome movie from the late 90s. And it's about a couple of cons that escape from prison, and they wind up in this small town, and they have to stay out of sight and stuff like that. Anyway, one of my favorite actors that you don't know, Steve Zahn. And then he plays a character called Wayne Jr., which is hilarious in and of itself. But he had a short fuse. And when he was about to pop and someone was pushing his buttons and they pushed that last button, he would declare, he would say, the light is green. And then he would just start wailing on the person. So he'd let you know it was coming. So I don't want you to get to a green light, okay? I don't want you to have to declare, like Wayne Jr., that the light is green, okay? So what happened in this scenario? This scenario has happened to me too. This scenario is going to happen to you. There was a situation where there was a piece of paper that wasn't collected on our end and scanned in, and it caused all kinds of problems, okay? Our company sends out all kinds of stuff to remind the client that this needs to be done, okay? But you know how our correspondence is, right? It's a mess. It comes in the same envelope as everything else. People generally don't read our stuff because we send out so much. And they always seem to not read the things that they have to read, right? The important things. And so in this case, there was a form that needed to be signed. It didn't get signed, and it created a problem. And honestly, I can't remember what it was, or whether the policy canceled or there was a bill, or a lot of times the policies will cancel and it creates more work for us, right? So the agent gets involved with the conversation with the client's husband. Now, he generally deals with the wife, and she's the one that does the insurance. Well, the husband gets on board and he's upset, and it kind of escalates pretty quickly. And it goes through a couple of phone calls, and eventually the husband's like, hey, fix it, or I'm moving my shit, or something like that. And that was the light is green moment. And it didn't go all the way to green. It flashed on yellow for a while. So after the conversation, I said, hey man, was there anything that we could have done to avoid all of that? And he was like, look, I don't want to be a part of the noise because the company's sending out all kinds of stuff. They know what they need to do, and they didn't do it. This is on them. And I said, I understand that. I said, but if you got that form signed and you had it in on time, would that have avoided all of this? And by all of this, I mean How many conversations did you have? How upset did the client get? How upset did you get? You had to shut your office because of that. If we got this done, would it have avoided all of that? And he's like, yeah. I said, I'll tell you what, I've had staff members in the past whose job is to get these pieces of paper signed and scanned in and, make sure that we don't create more work for ourselves. And there are times where my subpar CSRs would send an email out, say, hey, sign this, get it back to me. And they'd send it out once, and that's it. If the form didn't come back, my CSR would say, I sent the form. They never sent it back. This is their fault. And I would disagree with that. I would say, actually, you didn't do your job. And your job isn't just to send the form out. Your job is to get it signed and scan it in so it doesn't create more work for us. Now, are we going to get the form every single time? No. Can we get it 9 times out of 10? Probably. If something like this happens and a policy cancels because we do not get something signed and in place, I want to see in my notes and in my comment section that there is a trail. There's an aggressive trail of tries on our end that say they call up and they're mad and they're like, hey, why'd my policy cancel? What are you going to do to help me? Well, look, we emailed you on the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th. We called you on the 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's what that was for. Yeah. So you want to get this. There has to be a sense of urgency for some of this stuff. And the way I explained it to my agent I was working with, I know you don't want to contribute to the noise, but I want you to be the noise. Okay. I don't want you to assume that what the company's sending out is going to get things done. Because this stuff is going to happen. This stuff is going to happen if you don't do that. So anyway, it was a good conversation. He's like, I see what you're saying. And they'll probably tighten up some processes. I do not want to create any more work for my team. I do not want you creating any more work for your team. If you kind of audit the type of work that comes in your agency, how much of the work are you doing is because you're fixing something that didn't get done or didn't get done right. This is how we truly become efficient. Okay. We limit our mistakes. I don't want us creating more work. We have enough to do, right? So I had another conversation with another agent I was dealing with, and he had a situation that was tough too. He was writing a home that was like 3 hours from his office, and he had everything quoted up, ready to go. The guy called up. He's like, all right, I'm going to buy, and all this stuff happened. So when he was ready to convert, it triggered an inside and outside inspection, interior and exterior inspection, okay, which didn't look like it was going to trigger that before all this happened. So we didn't get a chance to prep the client that this was going to be coming. So he said, look, this got triggered and I'm going to ask for a little bit of help from you. Can you send me, 4 pictures of your house, front, back, left, right? I don't think that's a big ask in this day and age to have someone go out with their phone, snap 4 pictures, send it back. So they did that. They get the pictures. One of the pictures was not acceptable for one reason or another. So he's like, hey man, can you go and take another one of those? And he did. And then he had to go back to the client again for the 3rd time because something happened. He's like, yeah, we're also going to have an interior inspection. And the client was like, all right, look, what's going on here? This is a little bit more work than I expected it to be. So this will happen too. I try and do my best. Sometimes you want to explain why something is happening, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes the why is just this conversation that's going to lead nowhere, and it's a waste of time. I've had conversations with my staff members in my office where they come in and they're upset and they're like, why is this house so expensive? It's right next to another house that's half as expensive. Why? I don't care why. I don't care. We can speculate all we want about this stuff, but the price is the price. Can you sell it or not? There's some why conversations that I will avoid entirely. There are some whys that we have to explain to our clients because they want to know. I'm not going to say that to a client. I don't care why. I don't care why we need these inspections. You can't go at them like that, right? You essentially have to say, look, the insurance companies are going through a period of time right now they're pretty tough. We want to make sure that our risks are safe. And this is a way to keep our premiums and your premiums competitive. And so we have to, in some instances, have inspections. There are certain things that insurance companies look for on the exterior and the interior, like peeling paint and an old roof. We're not going to insure that. So they want to make sure if you have peeling paint or an old roof that we won't insure that. Well, why? Well, because homes that are in disrepair have a tendency, statistically, file more claims. It always comes down to money, right? It files more claims. It's a higher risk. This is the way of the insurance company determining a proper risk. So that's the way you kind of explain that. And the client should be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And that's the best you can do with that. Hopefully it's not an entirely bad experience or a massive inconvenience. But this is, our industry changes. There are things that we have to do and we have to roll with. And there are sometimes we have to explain why. And there are sometimes that why question is a waste of time. And those can be tough to identify, but don't get dragged down in a why question that's not going to lead you anywhere. You have to answer the why question from the client because you got to earn the business, right? And so anyway, that's what I got for you today. I just wanted to go over a couple instances with some conversations. I just want to make sure that you guys are running tight, well-oiled machines. Make sure you know what work is important. It's okay to chase a piece of paper if you send out 3 or 4 emails and make 3 or 4 calls, that will take you a total of 10 minutes to do all of that collectively to save 3 hours worth of work and an upset client. That's a good use of your time. Okay. So I just want you to, there's sometimes you got to have the hard conversations. You have to empathize with the client. Like, I know this might seem like an inconvenience, or I apologize that this policy canceled. I probably could have done a better job making sure this got done. I should have been a little bit more upfront about what would happen if we didn't get this signed. That's on me. Just, you can do that and own it and eat it and get on with it. Okay. So, if someone's being disrespectful or rude or yelling or swearing at your team, that's a different conversation, right? So, but a lot of times if you can muster up, I'm sorry, this was my bad, it really de-escalates everything immediately because they just want to feel heard. Okay. So these are tough things that we have to learn. These conversations can be hard, but once you learn that skill and you can de-escalate things quicker, you'll learn it's better. And there's a path of least resistance to all of this that I want you to find. What's the quickest way for me to solve this problem and get on with my life? I don't want to sit in this stew for 3 days. I don't want to anticipate a phone call coming in from an upset client because this didn't get done. I don't want to have to make a phone call that is going to offer up bad news. What can we do to avoid all that? How can we get through this faster or the fastest? That's what I try and do. So, hey, my name's Matt. This is Agency Launch. You can find me all over the place. I am on Threads and I am on Instagram at Dietz Agency. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Want to connect with me there? And send me a text, 208-213-8809, and send me the word free, and I'll hook you up with some really awesome resources. Thank you for listening. Keep up the good work.